Children, today we can go through lesson 6, Buddha. Nearly 2500 years ago, a baby boy was born to King Suddhodana and Queen Mahamaya of Kapilavastu. The boy was named Siddhartha. Often he was called by his clan name of Gautama. Since he was the only son, the king and the queen engaged many servants to look after Siddhartha. As years passed, Siddhartha grew up into a scholarly and thoughtful young man. Though he had learned all the skills of a warrior, he did not like to use them. He never participated in the royal hunts. He loved books better than anything else. Most of the time, he was found in meditation and deep thought. Siddhartha behaved in a different manner than other young men of his age. Devadatta, Siddhartha's cousin, was very skilled in archery. He was ever ready with his bow and arrow and loved to show off his skills on difficult targets. One day, Siddhartha was sitting in his garden when a flock of silver-white swans flew over the garden. Devadatta, who was walking about idly in the garden, saw the flock of silver-white swans floating in the bright blue sky. He pulled out his bow and arrow and aimed carefully at the leading swan and shot through its wing. It fell down, bleeding among the bushes. Siddhartha heard the fall and ran towards the spot. There he saw the wounded swan striving for life. He lifted it up, put it on his lap, and soothed the frightened bird. Siddhartha then gently drew out the cruel arrow from the bird's quivering wing. He caressed and spoke to the injured bird lovingly with kind words. He put herbs and honey on the bleeding wound and nursed the bird back to life. Devadatta's attendants came in search of the swan. They found it with Siddhartha and wanted to take the swan away to their master. But Siddhartha held the swan softly in his hands and said, "Tell my cousin Devadatta that the swan is not dead, but that I nursed it back to life. And as I rescued it, the swan is mine. If he is not satisfied, let the king and the court decide." The dispute was put up to the king. The king had the swan brought to court and put on a low stool in the middle of the hall. He told the two princes that each should call out to the swan. It would belong to the prince to whose call it would respond. First, Devadatta called the bird. The injured swan began to tremble. It put its head under its wings and tried to hide. Then Siddhartha called it. The bird looked up and joyfully waddled up to him and sat down in his lap. Seeing the behavior of the swan, the king pronounced, "The swan has chosen its protector and belongs to him. The rescuer of life has the right to keep the bird, not the one who tried to destroy its life." The king wanted his son Siddhartha to lead a happy life. He got him married to the princess of the neighboring country. But Siddhartha was deeply concerned about the suffering of the people around him. He did not care for the wealth and comforts of the palace. He left his wife and child and all luxuries of the royal life and went in search of peace. He travelled far and wide, met many sages and saints, and saw the sufferings of the poor and sick. He thought deeply and learned a lot from the actions of common folk. Siddhartha, who was also called Gautama, later discovered the four truths of life: the existence of pain and suffering, their causes, the need to overcome them, the means of doing so. As years passed, Gautama became Gautama the Buddha, the enlightened one. Here we finish reading our lesson.